Hello everyone and welcome to this video where today I'll be teaching you about our shape tools that we have in our Adobe Illustrator software. Now first we have the rectangle tool, just like the first lesson in which I told you. We can just click and drag to basically create a rectangle over here, and afterwards we can go ahead and then basically create more rectangles just like this by clicking and dragging, as you can clearly see. Then we can just select them and increase the width and also our height of the object or rectangle. And then if you want to change the rounded corners over here, you can click and drag. But if you want to select only a specific rounded color, do not click on this. Instead, if you want to use the direct selection tool and click on a specific corner, then the corner option will come up, in which you can select how your corners will act. Now let me select the bigger rectangle over here, select the corner, and here let's increase the radius a bit. And afterwards, if I select different corners, you can see their effect. As you can clearly see, this is the round, this is the inverted round, and this is the chamfer effect. And over here you can select the way we want our rounding. Okay, now if I select this option, first one's relative. Okay, let's just select this option. Here you can see that if I choose absolute, this is what happens, and if I choose the relative options, this is what happens. Okay, now let's say I have left this option for my rectangle, and also we can select the anchor points over here and then change the way I want to place my rectangle, as you can clearly see. Okay, all right, and then we can also select this anchor over here where we fixed our corner and move them to any place we want. All right, and then let's say you want to select a part or anchor over here from the rectangle. You can always select this anchor and then change their handles just like this. All right, as you can clearly see, this is what happens. And we can also select two anchors all at once by first selecting the anchor itself, then press shift and hold the other anchor, and now we can move these two anchors together, as you can clearly see. Okay, now after that, if you want to change the shape of your rectangle from the center, press shift and alt, then use the anchor over here, click and drag, and you can see that it increases its shape from the center while being totally proportionate in all sides. But you can also do that by pressing the shift key and then basically using the selection tool over here. Press the shift key and then you can see that it does the same, but this time it does not stay in the center, it just expands vividly. Okay, and also now what I'll do is basically again tell you about the properties over here. If you select to not scale corners, what will happen is basically you can see that the corners are not being scaled. And let's go back over here and select scale corners. Okay, and then let's deselect strokes and effects. Now what will happen when I make it small is that the basic stroke over here did not change according to the shape of our object. Okay, let's make it big, and let's basically select this option again, and this time when I make it small, you can see that the lines also itself go smaller. Okay, let's press Ctrl Z to get back. Let's press Ctrl Z to bring it back. All right, and now let's go over here and use this rectangle over here. And here you can see that I can also select any path over there and move it using my direct selection tool. You don't necessarily have to select our anchors. You can also select our paths. All right. So this is all for the rectangle tool, but you can also like fix their strokes, add a color. Then you can also add a uniform or any width profile you want to your rectangle. Then we can also select a width style, for example. I mean font. I mean stroke style. Now let's change the vector. So let's select this. Now you can see that this is what it looks like. Okay. So we have a design over here which you can use also. So let's go ahead and go to the next part, which is opacity, where you can increase and decrease the opacity of your shape. Now you can see that the opacity has decreased until it has disappeared, and now it's back. All right. Now we can also select the style over here. Let's select that. Now you can see that the style has changed for a rectangle clearly. Okay, let's press Ctrl Z to bring it back. And this time we'll put the style on a normal rectangle over here. If you want more styles, then go to this option over here. And here you can see we have 3D effects. And here it says we have the roadblock. Okay. I don't think we can do this because we don't have enough memory for this, but oh well. Let's go ahead and select another style instead of 3D. Let's select artist effects, and here we can select any of these. You can see that this is what it looks like very clearly. Okay. Now let's go ahead and basically use the direct selection tool over here, select an anchor, and now you can see that we can change the way this shape also looks. Now with this perfect option, we can also basically round our corners, make this part more rounder. We can do it like that also. Let's round this part. And now you can see that this is how we create different types of designs in Adobe Illustrator. Okay, now what I'm going to do is basically create a lightning style over here. So first I'm going to add some anchor points. Okay, now let's use the direct selection tool. Now what I can do is basically use my normal selection tool, turn it around, and now you can see that I have lightning over here. Okay, using my rectangle. All right, now you can do this with all other shapes. You can just use the direct selection tool and then create a shape like this. Okay, let's zoom out and let's move forward with our next basic tool, which is the rounded rectangle tool. Now the rounded rectangle tool is almost similar to our rectangle tool, other than the fact that it has rounded corners just like before. I don't think I have to I don't think I need to teach you anything about the rounded rectangle tool here, because this is basically almost similar to our rectangle tool. So I guess I'm going to skip this part and then go to my ellipse tool over here. Now what the ellipse tool does is basically it can create ovals or even clear circles. And as you can see, this is the circle. And if you want to create a circle which is perpendicular to the center, press shift, and after that you can see that my circle is clear. And if you want to create it from the center, for example, say you want to create it from this over here, the center of this rounded rectangle, press alt and shift and then create a circle. And then you can see that we have created our circle very carefully. Let's go over here and create another circle. Press shift alt and there you go. We have created our circle over here too. Okay. So now let's go ahead and show you the points of the circle. Okay. Now in the circle, we have only 4 anchor points from which we can choose from. We can make it wide also, but if we press shift and try to increase its size, it will increase its size perpendicularly towards the center. And if we go ahead and try to rotate it, okay, it won't show any change because it's a circle. And then we have this option over here, which is the smart angle, which will create like charts for you. If you try to create a pie chart, you can like cut out pieces of your circle. Let's say I just cut out 180 degrees. Okay. Now afterwards, you can see that I have a half circle. Now this way you can create half circles, or even you can just try to create a one 1/4 of a circle which is missing. All right. So this is all you need to know about circles. You can also fill in your color for this and also add a stroke color as well. As you can clearly see, you can increase its stroke, you can decrease its opacity, increase it as well very easily. All right. So this is how you use our circle or ellipse tool. And now you can see that we almost have a Pac-Man over here. So let's just create a yellow color over here and give our stroke as black. Here we go. Now we have our Pac-Man. All right. So this is how you use the ellipse tool. And afterwards, now what I'll try to teach you is our polygon tool. Now in polygon and star tool, there is similarity. Basically, when we use the polygon tool, we can just create a shape very easily, just like this. You can see the polygon has 6 sides. Okay, if you want to increase the number of sides, just click and hold while you're trying to make the polygon and then press the up and down arrow keys to basically increase the size. And if you go down to the lowest part, it will create a triangle. If you keep on going up, it will just create a circle that has, or a polygon that has 1000 sides. Okay, now let me turn it back down and you can see the width and height are decreasing. There you go. Okay. All right. So afterwards, if you want, you can just press the artboard over here and then increase the number of sides manually. And you can also increase the radius over here. Okay, now let's go ahead and select the number size to 4, and you can see that we have created a rectangle with our polygon tool. Okay, now in the polygon tool, you can go over here and let me expand it. And you can see that we have only one rounded rectangle point over here. Now if I do that, you can see that our polygons tools sides are being rounded from only one side. Okay, now if you want to like change the way it works, also use the direct selection tool, double click on it, select this, and then let's say the radius over here. Now you can see that this is how it changes. Okay, let's change it back to normal. And this time what I'll do is basically hold shift and select all the parts over here. And now I'm going to round them together. This time I'm going to use the option over here and then increase the radius more. And now you can see that this is what happens. All right. If I select the corners like this, you can notice a bit more difference, right? Now if I select these corners over here, you can see this is what happens. Okay. Now if I select that with my selection tool and then select rotate, it looks like we have a sheriff's badge over here. Okay. I can go back over here, use this. Let's fill it up with a different color. So now what I'd like to do is basically right click, transform, rotate to at least 180, press OK. Now what I'd like to do is okay, good enough, not bad. Now let's do something is basically let's go ahead and take a circle over here. And then what I'd like to do is add an anchor point, or I could just use this option over here. Take a half circle, enlarge it over here. Okay, so I'll delete this. There. Go. Now we seem to have a animated badge of sorts using our polygon tool over here. All right, so let's go ahead to the next tool, which is the star tool. Now, what is the star tool? The star tool is basically, as what it describes itself to be, it is a tool that creates stars. And just like the polygon tool before, we can create the shape by pressing and holding shift. We can create a straight shape other than the shape being like this. If you press shift, it will be even. And after we create it, we can also use the selection tool to enlarge it. Press and hold shift to make it perpendicular to all sides. If you don't press shift, this is what it will look like. Okay. All right, let's go back. And now if you want to create a star with an increased number of sides or corners, just create one, press the up arrow key to increase the number of vertexes that you wanted to have. And if you wanted to have more or less, then you can just go ahead and select the star over here, create one, press the down arrow key, and now you can see that we have a star just like this. Okay, let's select it, put down. Now with the star you can create many different types of designs. All right, let's go ahead, select the star, create one right over here. Okay, then what I'll do is basically take the rotate tool over here, then I'm gonna click on the center over here by pressing Alt, by the way. And after that, what I'd like to do is change the angle a little bit and then press copy. And then I can just press Ctrl D to spam this effect. And now you can see that we have a beautiful design over here. We can even change the fill to a different color. And now that was what it looked like. Let's just remove the stroke. Now you can see this is what it looks like. Okay, now we can go over here. First, let me right click and group them. And now let's go over here and we can add a style to it. So let's add a texture this time. And in texture, we make this big. You can choose any of these from below. As you can see, this is what it looks like. Okay, let's choose another texture over here. For example, this pattern effect. And afterwards, you'll see that this pattern effect doesn't suit this. So let's go ahead and add some buttons and rollovers. Okay, now here you can see that this is what it looks like. Okay, let's make it a bit small. Right. There you go. Now, this is how you basically use the star tool in order to create very various amounts of designs. And then we can also click over here again, and in our color fill, we can also choose a gradient color from here. So what we have to do for choosing the gradient over here is basically going to gradient, and then here I want my gradient to have, let's say, the color of blue. Here I want my gradient to have the color of red. For this one I want it to have okay. Now you can see that this is the way it affects my design, and it's very nice. Okay, so that is all for this video. Thank you for watching this, and I'll see you in the next video. Hello everyone, and welcome to this Adobe Illustrator tutorial, where today I'm going to show you or tell you whatever you learn in this Adobe Illustrator tutorial course. First, in these videos, you learn some of the basics of using Adobe Illustrator, how to use some tools and effects, why should you use them, and all these steps you need to use them. You'll also be provided with resources, main files used in these videos, and all the help needed in the videos for recreating the results. Thank you for watching. Hello everyone and welcome to this Adobe Illustrator tutorial, where today I'll be introducing what Adobe Illustrator is and also why it is most commonly used. Okay, so Adobe Illustrator is most commonly used to create logos, icons, infographics, and technical diagrams for printing and also web use. Illustrator's vector drawing capabilities make it ideal for creating the smooth curves, bright colors, and clean transitions found in these types of art. In this course, we'll use Illustrator to first make a landscape illustrations. We will also use Illustrator to make some basic logos, and also in the process of working through these projects, we'll gain familiarity with these tools most typically used to create artwork in Illustrator. We'll start off with a short tour to the Illustrator interfaces and then set up our workspace to help us work more efficiently in Illustrator, okay? So let's start now. Okay, now before I start, I want to tell you that you must be sure that you're using the most current version of Illustrator, okay? While you'll be able to complete many of the exercises in this course, using other versions of Illustrator, your interface may look different than what's shown in this course. If you're working with an earlier version of Illustrator, you may want to update your software to the latest version for the best experience. Okay, now first let's go ahead and explore the interface. Now after you load up Illustrator, you'll be greeted by the software which says welcome to Illustrator, and then you can either create a new file, open a new file, or you just select home over here. As you can see, since I haven't signed in, these are the only options I will have. Okay, so now what I'll do is basically go over here on top on the menu bar. As you can see, here we have a couple of options to choose from. And then here we have the AI logo, which will take me to a window over here as soon as I click on it. Okay, now let's go over here and again we'll go to the interface. So let's cut it. Okay, so now we're back here, and the first thing you would actually do when you open Illustrator is basically click on this new file over here, or you can click on open over here if you want to open any previous files. Now I'll select the new file option, and then you'll see we have a pop-up dialog box over here saying new document. And over here we have a couple of information given to us for our preset details. Now I'll go through each one of them right now. First, we have the name for our document. Okay, let's go over here and type in the Illustrator interface. Okay, now afterwards, what you'll see is that we have the width of our artboard and the height of our artboard that we want to make. And over here, we have points. The points, pixels, and picas are basically all of the measurements that you can select your art to be in. Okay, so for now I'll just select inches. Okay, now after selecting inches, you will see that our width has been randomly confirmed. Our width and height has been converted into their specific inches and height. Okay, we didn't have to put in our width and height before. Okay, after that we have our orientation, which is basically two types, portrait and landscape. We both know what portrait and landscape means. After that we have the number of artboards. The artboards are basically where you create your illustrations on. Okay, if I select two artboards, there will be two artboards, 3, 4, and so on. Let me turn it back to 1. And after that we have the bleed. Now, what bleed will do is basically ensure that your background image continues off the page, much like an infinity pool effect and ensures no white borders are left around the print if one is not desired. Okay, so that is what bleed basically does. It creates an effect so that while printing your document, it will not have any white borders left around on it. Okay, afterwards we have this option which will basically constrain or link all of the top and bottom width. After that, we have some advanced options. Now if I click on it, you will see that our advanced options are gone. Now let's click on it again, which is basically these three options over here. First, we have the color mode. There are two types of color mode, RGB and CMYK. Okay, so what is CMYK? And what is RGB? Now, this is an important factor because whether you're a designer or getting a design, it's important to know the difference between RGB and CMYK color modes so you can plan and optimize each stage of the design process. That goes beyond just knowing what the letters stand for. Spoiler alert, they are mostly colors, because it's more about knowing which one is best for your project. Depending on where and how the final result is displayed, one color space is always better than the other. Okay, now I'm going to tell you what they mean so that you will never be afraid of these acronyms again. All right, so both RGB and CMYK are modes for mixing colors in a graphic design. As a quick reference, the RGB color mode is best for digital work, while the CMYK is mostly used for printing products. But to fully optimize your design, you need to understand the mechanisms behind RGB and CMYK. So let's dive a little deeper and tell you what first RGB is. RGB stands for red, green, and blue, and it is the color space for digital images. Use the RGB color mode if your design is supposed to be displayed in any kind of screen. Okay? Now, when do you want to use RGB? In the end destination of your design project, if it is a digital screen, use the RGB color mode. That would go anything that involves for computers, smartphones, tablets, TVs, cameras, and etc. Now, turn to RGB if your design project involves web and app designs, including icons, buttons, graphics, branding, including online logos, online ads, social media, images for posts, profile pictures, profile backgrounds, visual content, for example, videos, digital graphics, infographics, photographs for website, social media, or apps. Okay? So after that, now I'll explain to you what CMYK is. Okay? Now, CMYK stands for cyan, magenta, yellow, and key black. Okay, it is the color space for printed materials. A printing machine creates images by combining CMYK colors to varying degrees with physical ink. This is known as subtractive mixing. All colors start as blank white, and each layer of ink reduces the initial brightness to create the preferred color. When all colors are mixed together, they create pure black. Okay? So when will you use CMYK? Use CMYK for any project design that will be physically printed and not viewed on a screen. Okay? If you need to recreate your design with ink or paint, the CMYK color mode will give you more accurate results. Now turn to CMYK from RGB if your project involves branding, including business cards, stationery, tickets, stickers, signs and storefronts, advertising, merchandise, and essential materials, for example, product packaging, and also restaurant menus. All right. I will also teach you later on how to change your color space in Illustrator, basically how to convert from CMYK to RGB color mode, okay? Now afterwards, we have the raster effects, which are given to us in 4 options: high, medium, screen, and 36 ppi, okay? So what is raster effects? This setting determines the resolution for pixel-based effects such as drop shadow, blur, glow, all of the Illustrator effects, and sometimes the 3D effects depending on the artwork you map. If you don't use these kinds of effects, then raster effects and resolutions does not matter, okay? Now, unlike vectors, which are resolution independent, the output quality of raster images depends upon their resolution. When you're creating a raster image, you need to tell the program how large the pixel should be. That is, how many pixels can fit in an inch. Also, PPI is known as pixels per inch, okay? Now, if you are trying to make raster images for a web page, you only need it to be at least 72 ppi, relatively large pixels. Okay? But those for for high resolution print output, they need to be in between 300 to 200 ppi. Okay? All right? Now after that, we have the preview mode, which is set to default by default. Now if you click on this option, you will see that we have 3 types. And we already know the first one. The second one is pixels, and third one is overprint, okay? The preview mode in Illustrator allows you to view the results of your artwork before you commit to a file. This is helpful if you're not sure how your artwork will look like when it is finished, or if you want to make changes before you want to save your file, okay? Alright, let's go ahead and then select a template from here, and now I'll basically explain to you what these menus do in our new document area, okay? So first we have the recent over here, which will show you any recent presets that you have used for your Illustrator software. After that we have saved, and it will show you the saved templates or presets. Then we have mobile. This will basically tell you all the presets that we have for any mobile design, okay? As you can see, we have a couple of designs to choose from, and then we have the web design over here, and it is commonly used for web illustrations, designs, etc. Then we have printing, which will obviously show any resolution for our printing designs and illustrations. And you can see that whenever I go to web, the color mode automatically changes. As you can see, also the raster effects as well. And if I go to print, CMYK comes back. Okay, let's go back to web over here, and now this you can see. Now notice you can see that the resolutions are also written down below clearly. Then we have film and video, and yes, we can also make illustrations for our film and video over here. Okay, now after film and video we have art and illustration, and here you can see that we have different amounts of formats and presets for any of them below if you ever need it. Okay, let's go back to web over here, and I want to use at least like this much. It's perfect. Afterwards, now RGB raster effects 72 ppi, and let's create the documents. Now you'll only press create after you're done editing your preset details, and if you want to like select any presets from here, you can do that. So let's create it. Okay, now afterwards you'll notice that we get this type of view. All right. So inside Illustrator's home window, we have panels, bars, various tools to choose from and create or manipulate our documents and files. In the view over here, it is basically in a document view in the center, and we have our panel view on the right over here, and our menu bar is right here, and afterwards we have our tool palette on the left, and there are 3 palette groups on the vertical dock. Okay, now what I'll do right now is, now I'll explain to you what these properties, layers, and libraries do. Okay, so by default we know that this is basically our panel view. All right, so in the properties section you can see that first it says no selection. This is because we don't have it or have any shapes over here. For example, let's say I created a square or a rectangle over here. Now you can see that the properties show me a rectangle, but if I click outside using my selection tool, it will say no selection, and by default it has selected the document. Okay, now over here what I'll do is basically explain to you each of these options. Now you can see that after I've drawn a rectangle over here, it shows me this option. But now let's go back over here. First, in the document, we have pixels as the unit of measurement that we are using for our document. Then we have artboards. Now artboards are basically the spaces in which we will create our illustrations with, and here you can see a single artboard. But now if I go over here and write down 2 artboards and press enter, there, now you can see that there's another artboard over here. All right, as you can clearly see, there are 2 artboards over here now. Okay, and if I select any of the artboard over here, it will show me artboard number 1, artboard number 2, as you can see. Okay, and in order to add more artboards, you can just go to the edit artboard option, and here, as you can see, let me zoom out a bit. Okay, I can't zoom out now, but what I was trying to say is basically here you can edit the way your artboard is placed. For example, we can resize it, like as you can see over here, I have resized it. All right. Okay, and now you can see my rectangles outside. I can also create a new artboard like that. Okay, and if I go back to the original properties over here, you can see that now we have 5 artboards. Now let's go back to edit artboards and delete all the excess artboards that we have. And you can also do that in this property section, just so you know. And let's go forward and go over here and exit for now. And I'll take my rectangle back over here. Okay, now after doing that, let's go back to properties. Now that we know what edit artboards option does, and here we can also select the transform option in order to make our artboard a bit more editable. Afterwards, we can also name the artboard that we're using. Okay, as you can see clearly, and we can also create a new artboard from here too. Okay, and then in the preset over here, we can select any of these preset artboards over here. As you can clearly see, we can set it to portrait, landscape also. And if you want some quick actions, you can always go to the artboard options where you have more options available to us. And here in the display, we can also put in show center mark and show crosshairs, show video safe areas. And in global, you can also select fade region outside artboard and update while dragging. Okay, and here in these options, it would say the artboards, and also press Alt plus drag cursor to duplicate the artboard. Now press OK. Now you can see that this is what it does. It shows you the crosshairs, and also it shows you the video save areas, and also it shows you the center mark like that. All right. So now what I'll do is basically remove that, and that, and press OK. Now we're back to default. All right, so that's all you need to know about the artboard properties. Now let's exit and go back to our normal properties. And here you can see that we have rulers and grids. Now what rulers and grids will basically do is create a ruler over here so that you can take some measurements, as you can clearly see. And you can also select the grid which will match with our ruler to create this view, as you can clearly see. Okay, now what I'd like to tell you here is that we mainly use these options in order to create accurate demonstrations or illustrations. And after that, we have the transparency grid, which will make everything transparent so that you can see how your layout actually looks like over here, and if it is inside our artboard. Let's click outside. Let's go back. And now what I'll do is basically explain to you what guides does. The first over here is to click to hide guides, and now if you do that, it will hide the guides, which will basically help you to see what tools you're selecting. Let's say I just closed it, and now you can see that when I hover my mouse over it, it still shows me that option. All right, and sometimes the guides over here will show you what the tools do. Okay, afterwards we have this option, which is smart guides. This will help you to show some smart guides or some options to choose from in order to create a better illustration. So let's click that again. Let's undo that. And now what I'd like to do is show you the snap options. Okay, and here you can just click to lock guides also for guides. Now let's go back to snap options. What snap option does is basically snap two things together. All right, and here we have snap pixel and also snap grid. All right, now I'll show you what happens with snap options. All right, let's zoom out a bit. Now here you can see that this is the rectangle I have, and let's say I have another rectangle or any rectangle like this. All right, let's create it like that. Okay, now if I zoom in over here, and let's say I use the selection tool and I wanted it to snap inside this part. So let me turn this off, and if I select this now and try to snap it in, okay, you'll see that it just snaps in. It does not snap in place that easily. But when I have these snap options on and try to do it, you can see that it is pixel perfect and it snaps on way easier than before. Okay, so it will provide fluidity for you to snap in everything you do. All right. Okay, after the snap options, we have preferences, which will be basically use preview bounds, use scale corners, and use scale strokes and effects. Now, what happens is, let's say I have this use preview bounds option off. What will happen is when I try to make my object smaller, okay, here, let me zoom in. You can see that this is what it looks like. The height is exactly 7 and 6. Let me turn it back to 10. Okay, and let's turn the height to 10 also. And here you can see that without using preview bounds, this is what happens, all right? Now, if the keyboard increment is set to 1 pixel, it shows you basically what pixel this has been added to, okay? Now, what I'll do now is basically select use preview bounds and create another rectangle over here, or square, okay? And what I'll do now is basically make it a rounded corner and then make it small. Now you can see when I make it small, it does not directly turn into a circle. Whereas if I had this off, it will turn into circle. All right. So let's go back over here. And now I would like to talk to you about the scale corners. Now, if I put this option on, you'll notice that when I do this to a rounded corner, it is not scaling the corners and making it into a circle, okay? Now, if I select the scale, strokes, and effects, what will happen is basically, let's do that again. Let's delete this and let's use this one. Okay, now here you can see that I have a 10 pixels by 10 pixels option. Now let's press the heck, man? Let's take another rectangle over here, okay? And here you can see that I have 10 pixels by 10 pixels. All right, but if I click outside and go over here and change the increment to, let's say, 2, press enter. Now what will happen is we can still see it's 10 pixels, but when we go down, it's still 10 pixels, but it's 4 pixels now, okay? And you can see that when I turn this rectangle slower, when I turn this rectangle's size into a smaller shape, the size of the borders around it also turns small, all right? But now if I go over here and then deselect this and then make this small as well, now you can see that the rectangle does not change its borders as well, okay? So I'll actually prefer you turn this off and also this option off, okay? Now afterwards, we have document setup and preferences. So document setup is just like before. All right, it will select the picture, it will select the pixels. You can also select the artboard, and then you can also select the grid colors, simulated paper color, preset, medium resolution, high resolution, or low. And you can discard white over prints in output. And over here, if we go to type, you can also select a typographer's codes, as you can clearly see. And this is basically the size and position of your superscript, subscript, and small caps. And then if you want to export, you will also select the preserve text editability or appearance over here, and then press OK. Now let's go ahead and select preferences over here. Okay, in preferences, you'll find all the settings that you need to change any of these options individually. First, we have general, where we have a lot of options to choose from. Then, now before you start working in any application, given some thought to the preferences, you have to make sure you know all of them, okay? Now, each Adobe application gives you numerous preference options that controls the way the application performs specific actions or reacts in specific situations. access the Illustrator preference window always by selecting the edit option over here. As you can see, then you can select preferences. Okay. Now the preference window controls many panes. Okay, and you can select a specific pane from the preferences submenu, as you can see over here, or use the pop-up menu at the top over here in help. Okay, so now what I'll do is basically show you general over here, in which first we have keyboard increment. Keyboard Keyboard increment refers to the amount of selected object moves when one of the arrow keys on the keyboard is pressed. After that, we have constraint angle. Constraint angle enables you to change Constraint angle enables you to change the angle of the X and Y axis. They are horizontal, vertical by default. Enter another degree into one of these text fields to rotate the axis. A positive number moves the rotation angle counterwise, and a negative number moves it in the normal clockwise motion. So always remember positive number equals to counterclockwise and negative number equals to clockwise. And then we have the corner radius, which refers to the corner appearance when the rounded rectangles are drawn. Okay? Over here we have the disable auto add / delete option, which will disable this automatic function. Then we have precise cursors, which will basically help you to turn on an option that gives you very precise pointer when you're working with the tools in the toolbox. The precise cursors help you accurate your work in a very detailed way. Alright, then we have show tooltips, and you know that tooltips are shown every time we hover our mouse over our tools over here on the left side on our tool panel. And you can uncheck this option if you do not want to display the name of a tool when you hover your mouse over it. Okay. Then we have show rich tooltips, which are the same as this. Then we have show / hide rulers. This will basically show what your rulers are gonna do. And we already know what rulers did over here. Okay, you can turn it on by default or you can turn it off. After that, we have the anti-aliased artwork, which will basically display your vector artwork much smoother than is usually possible on a monitor, giving you a more precise view of how you want it to be printed. Alright, then we have select same tint percentage, which will show you the select same menu commands in Illustrator. Enables you to select all objects that have the same fill or stroke color. When this box is checked, these commands will select only those objects that have the same tint percentage or any of the given colors. Alright, then we have show the home screen when no documents are opened. You already know what this does. Then we have use legacy file new interface. Okay. Now what this option actually does is basically, for example, if you ever received a file from a coworker or client, whatever it was, if the file was older than the Illustrator version you're currently using, Illustrator calls this kind of documents legacy files. And when you try to save via file save, this kind of file, after you made changes to it, you will receive this error if you uncheck or check this. Okay, so now after that we have display print size at 100% zoom. All right, so what this does is basically print your document at 100% zoom. Okay, if you uncheck this, it will not do it. After that, we have append, which is basically converted upon opening legacy files. This will help you to open previously which will help you to open previous versions of legacy files and convert them. All right. Then we have show system compatibility issues at startup. If you uncheck this, it will not show you. Then we have enable or force enable pinch to zoom on touchpad. This is for touchpad users only. All right. Then we have double click to isolate. It will help you to select your corners of your or corners or any side of your shape or line as you fit over here. Okay, this is basically, it does the work of an direct selection tool over here. Instead of like shifting to the direct selection tool and clicking on it, you can just double click it with the selection tool and then isolate it. Then we have use Japanese crop marks. You can enable it for Japanese crop marks. Then we have transform pattern tiles, scale corners, and we already know what these two do. Okay. Then we have enable content aware defaults, honor scale on PDF format, zoom with mouse wheel. Okay. We can select that as on. I would like to zoom, yes. And afterwards we have use preview bounds. We already know what that does. And then afterwards we have use preview bounds. We already know what that does. And trackpad gesture to rotate view. This will only work with laptops. Okay. Now after that we have reset all warning dialogues and reset preferences, which will always reset all the changes that we have done into our preferences. Okay. After that we have selection and anchor display. Okay, here you can see that what it does is basically, and then after that we have the tolerance of our selection and snap to point, which is 2 pixels. Okay, I'll skip this part over here because we don't have enough time for this video. Next we have anchor points, handle, and bound box display. This will help you to fix the anchor points and handles in your Illustrator. Okay, now here, this is the handle style. You can either put it to these two styles. Okay, after that we have highlight anchors as you move over it with a mouse. Show handles when multiple anchors are selected. Let me just select this. And then hide corner widget for angles greater than 177 degrees. Okay. Then we have enable rubber band for pencil and curvature tool. After that we have type, which will basically help us in typing anything in our Adobe Illustrator software. Okay. Then we have language options and multiple options to choose from over here. After that we have units, and we already know what units do. Here we have general, and then points over here, and then we have general, which is for every one of these. If I select points, everything will be points, as you can see. Let's go back to pixels, and here our strokes can also be pixels. Our type will be points or pixels or inches or millimeters. Okay. And afterwards we have identify objects by object name or XML ID. This is basically the ID that our Illustrator software uses. Then we have guides and grids. And here you can see that the guides will be in a different color and styles lines. Okay, then grid, here you can create a custom color for them, and then style in lines or dots. And afterwards, grid line every 72 pixels, subdivisions 8. Smart guides, just like before, we have seen in the property over here. Okay, display options, smart guides is in magenta. Display options, object guides over here are in magenta. Glyph guides over here are in custom green. Alignment guides, anchor path labels, object highlighting, measurement labels, transform tools, and spacing guidelines. Okay. After that, we have construction guidelines, which will be at 90 degrees and 45 degrees. We can also add more degrees over here. Okay, then we have construction guides over here, which will choose the angles that we are making for our lines using the line tool. Maximum, you can choose upon 2 angles, and over here you can see you have 60 degrees and horizontal angles and all of the angles over here. All right, now if I click on this, you can see that it will use it, but if I don't, it will not. Okay, all right, afterwards what we will do is basically go over here on slices. Now slices will basically help you using the slice tool, and whenever you've created a slice, it will show you the numbers using this option, and it will show you the color of the slice using this color. Okay, and this is basically the shape of the slice or the border of the slice that you have done. And then we have hyphenation, plugins and scratch disks, user interface, which will show you the brightness. As you can see, if I select this, this is what happens. Select dark. Let's go back to gray over here. And then in canvas color, we can match brightness, select white, or in share button, we can match brightness and select blue. We can also auto collapse iconic panels, open documents as tabs, large tabs, UI scaling from small to large. As you can clearly see, this is what will happen. Okay. Afterwards, we have scale cursor proportionately, as you can see. Then we have scroll buttons at ends or together. Okay, if I select together, you'll see that the scale buttons or scroll buttons are together. Okay. And these changes will take the next time we start Illustrator. In performance, we will see that this is what happens. If you have a GPU, it will select the GPU performance and an animated zoom. Okay, and then here it will tell you your GPU details. Afterwards, let's go to file handling, where you can select the location where you want to save your file, or basically automatically save recovery data every 2 or 30 seconds or hours. Okay. After that, we have files, where we will optimize file open and file save time on slow networks, lower resolution proxy for linked EPS, and display bitmaps as anti-aliased images in pixel preview. Then we have use system defaults for edit original, and then fonts, we can auto activate Adobe fonts. Okay, then we have clipboard handling, and on copy we can include SGB code, PDF, AICB, no transparency support. Just make sure you know that. If I select this, we have 2 options: preserve paths, preserve appearance and overprints. Let's deselect it because I do not want that. And when pasting, paste without text formatting, as you can see. All right, then we have appearance of black. Here we can select the options for black on RGB and grayscale devices. Then we have devices, which will either say enable Wacom or not. Okay, let's press OK, and now we are back over here. All right, now what I'll do is basically go to the menu option over here so that you can understand what they do. First, we have the file option on our menu, which will show you some options to create some new files. Close it, close all if you have opened multiple documents over here. Save, save as, and then we have save as template, export scripts, document setup, document color mode, and you can see that we can change it over here too. And then we have file info, print, exit. In edit, we have multiple options to choose from in order to edit our document. Okay. Now here we can either paste, copy, cut, redo, and you can see that every option over here has their significant shortcut. Okay. Then we have find and replace, spelling, edit custom dictionary, edit colors, transparency flattener presets, print, Adobe PDF, perspective, grid, presets. Okay, you can select any of these things if you want to select a preset from. Color settings, assign profile, keyboard shortcuts, my settings, and I already showed you preferences. After that, we have object, where you can select any of these options from in order to select it or either edit it. Then afterwards, we have type, from where we can select the options regarding our text. Then we have select, okay, where we can select our inverse, select every object in our Illustrator artboard. After that, we have FX, where we can apply effects from either Illustrator effects or Photoshop effects. And here we can also go to the document raster effects settings. And here you can see that this is our resolution now. Background white, transparent, options anti-alias, clipping mask, etc. Okay, after that we have view. Here we can also go to presentation mode, screen mode. We can select these options. Now let's select full screen mode with menu bar, and now you can see that this is what happens. Let's go back to screen mode and let's select normal screen mode, and we're back. Okay, after that, here we can also create a new window, and then we have different types of Windows option over here to choose from. All right, as you can clearly see. Then we have help, where we can also sign in and get updates on Illustrator. Okay. Hello everyone, and welcome to this video, where today I'm going to be teaching you how to use our selection tool and direct selection tool plus the group selection tool in our Adobe Illustrator software. So first, in order to select the selection tool, we have to go to the left side of our tool panel over here, and then you can see that we have a selection tool present here, and also our group selection and direct selection tool present here, as you can see clearly. Okay, first, what the selection tool does, as I explained in the previous video, is that it is a black arrow icon that you can use all the time. It functions as a typical cursor, allowing you to select, click, and drag objects around your text screen. Okay, so first let me create an object so that I can show you what it does. So let's create an object over here. Okay, now you can see that I have a square over here. Let me increase the line of our stroke by clicking on this arrow over here to go to properties for my rectangle. Okay, so I'll increase the stroke to about this much. All right, now what I'll do is basically go over here and I can click on the object, then I can move it to any place I want, as you can see clearly. Okay, so this is what you use to basically do with the selection tool. You click on it, drag it, and you can also resize your objects using the selection tool, as I will show you right now. You can select any one of these sides to increase their width, their height, okay? Or if you want to increase them gradually with a corner, you can do that as well. All right. Some things you need to know about using the selection tool is that you can also use it to copy your objects. Now, you can either just select copy and paste it over here like I did, or you can go over here and let's say I hold the Alt key on my keyboard, and now you can see the cursor the cursor changes itself, and here it is showing me a different cursor, which means it is ready to copy. Okay, now if I click and drag, you'll notice that my original shape stays in place, and I can copy it and put it over here. And then afterwards, if you want to copy more types of the same shape over here, you can just press Ctrl plus D, and it will copy your shape according to the space and also the width and height you left it on your artboard, as you can see over here. Okay, we can use these ways in order to create different types of designs in Adobe Illustrator. Now say I select all of these objects over here, I can also press Alt to copy them down, as you can clearly see right now. Okay, this is very helpful while creating any types of designs that contains repetitive same designs. Okay, now let's press Ctrl D over here. Now you can see that I have a calendar format almost done. Let's press Ctrl Z, and Ctrl Z is basically to do an undo of your move that you did previously. All right, now here you can see that all of my objects are here and it looks perfect. All right, now what the selection tool also allows you to do is basically select an object and change its color. Now you can either go over here, double click it and select a color from here from our color picker, or you can go over here to the color option and then select a color over here, and now you can see that it readily changes its color according to the one I want. Okay, I can select this one, let it be yellow, this one let it be navy blue, red, let's say this one has black, green, etc. Now, another thing you need to know about selection tool, you can use it to select a group of shapes and then change your colors as well. Now you can see that 4 of my rectangles over here have the orange color, okay? And let's say you want to select all of them, but there are a few of the objects over here which you do not want to change the colors of. So what you'll do is basically press an object over here, press shift and then select the objects that you want, and afterwards you can change their colors. Now you can see that the objects that I have chose selectively have changed their colors by holding the shift key on my keyboard. Okay, now I can go again here, match the object's color so that it matches over here. All right, now I'm gonna do the same thing, select 1, then 2, 3, 4, 5 and change their color. There you go. Now you can see this is what it looks like. Okay, all right, so this is how you use the selection tool. Okay, and afterwards let's delete all of this and I'll show you how to basically, let's say I create a rectangle over here. Before that, let's press Ctrl Z and select default colors. Let's increase the stroke a bit. Okay, now what I have here is the rectangle, and I told you before that I can use these options or dots over here in order to change the way I want my shape to be. There's also another rounded corner option over here. As you can see, right over under this vertex we have this dot with a full stop inside, and I can just click on it and drag it in order to make a rounded corner. Okay, as you can see. Now, if you want to change the way you want to see a rounded corner, just go over here. As soon as your cursor changes, double click on it, and afterwards we will see our transform panel pop up, and over here it will show you the rectangle corners. Okay, let's just click on this again. Okay, after clicking on that, you can see that we have this transform panel up here, and here we have the corner type that we want, and we can select on this, and then you'll see different types of corner types. As you can see, we have the chamfer, the inverted round, and the round. Okay, let's select round, and here you can also select the corner radius that you want. As you can clearly see, let's turn it back to 0. Okay, after that, we can also put this constraint or link corner value radius. So if I select this, say I do this and do not select this, and what will happen is it will only reduce the corner of one selective corner, as you can clearly see. Okay. After that, we have rectangle properties for our width and height. And over here, you also have the width and height as well. The axes that is placed in our basic artboard. We also can change the angle over here, as you can clearly see. We can also change it into a parallelogram if you want. Let's put it back to 0. Okay. Then afterwards, we have scale corners and scale strokes and effects. Okay. Let's go back here, and if I do this, and let me just get small, and now you can see that the edges are not being changed. Okay. Let's go back, press Ctrl Z. Okay. Now, after we are done with our selection tool, let me explain you what these points are. These points, okay, these white dots over here are basically anchor points, and this dot over here is the center. Okay, you can change the center of your dot, but I'll show that to you in another video. Then afterwards, now let's go to our direct selection tool. And what the direct selection tool does is basically it allows you to individually select and edit specific anchor points of vectors, shapes, or lines, okay? Where the regular selection tool would select the entire shape, the direct selection tool enables you to edit one angle, side, point, or curve at a time. For example, now, if I wanted to change this rectangle, so let me just put all corners over here and say I wanted to change this anchor. Okay, now with the selection tool, we can also do the work of our direct selection tool, but now I don't think so. So let's use the selection tool, and then let's say I want to make this a triangle by removing this anchor over here. I can do that, not remove, actually move it. And you can see after I select it, I can automatically take it to the center, and now my rectangle has become a triangle. Now let's press Ctrl Z to undo. I can do that with any of these paths that I have available over here. Okay. Now let's say I want to reduce this anchor. Just double click on it, and afterwards I can move it like that. And then just double click on this, I can move it like that. Now you can see that we have a perspective of it. And you can also select multiple anchors by just double clicking on it, press shift, and then double click on this one too. And then you can just select it and move it, and now you can see that I have 2 anchors moving. Okay, I can also select 3 anchors. Let's select this, and this. Afterwards, I can move them like that, as you can clearly see. Okay, all right. So this is for the rectangle. Now I'll show you something about the circle. Okay, let's delete this. And let's take the ellipse tool, press shift, and create a perpendicular circle from the center. Now let's take the direct selection tool. Now you'll notice whenever I click on an anchor, it gives me these two this straight line on the edge, which are known as the handles. What the handles will do is basically curve my path over here. Now I can either use the direct selection tool to curve my path, as you clearly saw right now, or I can just click on the path over here and then select the anchor handle and then move it like this, as you can clearly see. Okay. Afterwards, I can do the same thing to all of these anchors over here. All right. Let's go down and then select this anchor. And then select this anchor. All right. Now you can see that I have a weird shape over here. using my direct selection tool, I change the handles direction and create this wavy shape over here. All right. If I select it again, you can see I have the handles present. I can move them all one by one, or I can also select them like this and move them. All right. So this is how you use the direct selection tool in order to move your handles. So let's select this and delete it. And afterwards, let's say I want to create a design with my selection tool, which I will basically use the group selection tool in order to show you its work. Okay, so let's go ahead and first tell you what the group selection tool does. This tool is used to easily select a specific object within a group in order to move, edit, and resize it individually. I actually even didn't realize this was a real tool until today, but I'm super glad it exists because this will save you a lot of time and eliminate the need for a million double clicks, which accomplish the same thing but takes a lot longer. Okay, so let's create a group of objects over here. Let's take the polygon. Let's press shift and okay, now that I've created a polygon, let's use the selection tool. Let's put it over here. Let's just press Alt over here, copy it just like that. Press Alt, copy it just like that. Okay, let's move this one a bit to the right. Okay, there you go. We have our shape ready. Now, what I'm going to do is select it, press Alt, make a copy of it just like that. Select it, go a bit far. Okay, now what I'm going to do, press Ctrl Z, take it back. Now I can just select the whole thing, press Alt, and copy it like that. Okay, so now let me delete these two over here. I can easily then select all of them, press Alt, paste them over like this. Okay, now you can see that I have a beautiful honeycomb structure. Now I want to select all of them and I want to change their stroke color. So I'll double click on the parents over here or single click and then select yellow or orange. That works better. And then in color fill, I would like to put in the yellow color. Okay, now you can see that I have a honeycomb ready for use. Okay, now what I would like to show you is basically first let me group them together, because most of the time you want to group your objects together in order to like use them. For example, let's say I want to move all of them together, but I do not want to change the way it looks and save a lot of time. So for example, let me just Control Z to ungroup them again and say I want to move them one by one. Okay, that will take a lot of time and I do not want to waste that much time. So in order to save time with the selection tool, I'll select all of them, right click, select group, and then what will happen is basically when I select one part of the object, it all moves along. Okay, so this is a very good shortcut to use while you're trying to move a lot of objects together, but trying to save time, not to waste any measurements that you're trying to do. Okay. Now, afterwards, what I'd like to do is basically move a selected tool, but not just, just double clicking on this selected and then moving it, which will just be like very time consuming. As you can clearly see, if I double click it, then I only can move it, but it still stays in a group. Now, if I move one of them, you can see that all of them moves. In order to just repeat what I just did without even like double clicking on them, I can just go over here, right click, select the group selection tool, and now afterwards I can select any one of these objects and then move them individually without worrying about whether I have to ungroup them or double click to move them. As you can clearly see over here, I can move each of them without worrying if it is double clicked or not, or either ungrouped from their position. Okay, let's create a design over here. All right, now since my design is complete, that concludes the end of our lesson. So thank you for watching this video, and I hope you've understood how to use the selection tool, direct selection tool, and group selection tool. So I'll see you in the next lesson. Okay? Hello everyone, and welcome to this video where today I'll be teaching you about the magic wand tool and the lasso tool. Now first, let's go towards the magic wand tool. You will notice that the magic wand tool is present to us on the left side on our tool panel right below our selection tool, right here. Now, what the wand tool allows us to do is basically click on a single object in order to automatically select everything in your workspace with the same fill color. Okay? So in order to use this magic wand tool, first we need to have objects with the same color fill. So let's say I have different types of objects over here. Okay? And now for our last one, we'll use a star tool. Okay? So now what I'm going to do is basically add a color to each and every one of these shapes. So first for our rectangle, let's put a yellow color. Orange. Okay, there you go. Now that we have our shapes ready, let's go ahead and copy some of these shapes. Okay, so let's say I copied one of these shapes here. Okay, and there you go. So you'll notice that the only object I didn't copy is this shape over here. You'll understand in a bit why I didn't do that. Okay, so here's the magic wand tool, and you can see that the shortcut for this magic wand tool is the key Y. And here it says that it selects objects with similar appearance and attributes. So let's select this. And now what will happen is basically when I click on this shape, it will select the objects with similar color towards this, okay? And afterwards, when I click on it and use the selection tool, you'll notice that it selected 4 shapes. Firstly, over here, since this is a darker shade of yellow, this is why it was selected with our magic wand tool. Now, if you want to edit the way your magic wand tool works, okay, you can select the tolerance from here, stroke color, stroke weight, opacity, and blending mode. Now, you will notice that when I turn the tolerance down to 0, let's cut it, and now let's say I use the magic wand tool. Now you can see that due to 0 tolerance, it does not click on these objects also or select them. Okay, it just selects these 2 objects. All right. Now, after that, let's go over here. And here it will also select objects with the same stroke color or stroke weight. Okay, let's go ahead and go over here. Let's zoom in. So I'll zoom in now. And this time I want them to use the stroke color. So let's say, and let's see if it works or not. So when I click on the path over here and zoom out, okay, you'll notice that only 2 of these objects are selected and they're not selecting everything over here. Okay, so this is what the magic wand tool basically does. You click on a certain object with similar colors, they will select it. And now let's say that over here one of my stars are big, so let's okay, so now let's select the magic wand tool and select it, and now you can see that it still selects the objects. Okay, same for light blue, black, navy blue, this shade of yellow, and red. And also if I select purple, it will only select this significant object because there are no many more than 1 similarities in our artboard over here. Okay, now what I'm going to do is basically select all of them and delete it, and I'm going to bring in a vector image so that I can use my magic wand tool with it. Okay, so here's the magic wand tool. So here is the vector image. Let me make it a bit bigger. Okay, after that, I'm going to right click and then I'm just going to let it stay here for now. Now, if I go over here and select the magic wand tool and select it, you will notice that it's not working. So let's go back over here and then okay, we need to take another picture. Okay, so now what I'll do is basically use my magic wand tool on this vector image. As you can see, this is a vector image where I have multiple shades of colors, and this is a design which I want to use for my future videos. All right, so let's select this color specifically, and after that we can use the selection tool to move the same shades of these color, as you can clearly see. Okay, I can do that again with another color. As you can see, afterwards I can move them freely like this. Okay, let's zoom out a bit. All right, now what I'll do is use the selection tool again, and here you can see that This is what happens, okay? So afterwards, I can also use the selection tool again. And this time, let's say I select this color or this. It can be any color I want as long as I select them properly and move it, okay? So this is how you basically use the magic wand tool, as you can clearly see, all right? Now, as you can see, this is what remains of my image after I use the magic wand tool to remove all the similar colors. And again, I'll tell you when you use the magic wand tool, if you want to edit any way you want to use it, just double click on this option and then you'll have these options available. And then afterwards, you can click on these three layers over here and select multiple options over here as well: height stroke options, height transparency options, reset, and use all layers. Okay, so this is all for our magic wand tool. Now what I'll do is basically press Ctrl A, delete this, and then I'm going to make some multiple objects over here. Doesn't need to have any color, so I'm just gonna normally copy them. Okay, press Ctrl D to repeat it. Then I'm going to select all of them and then press Alt and copy them just like this. Okay, now what I'm going to do is basically teach you how the lasso tool works. Okay, now the lasso tool is available to us on the right side of the magic wand tool right over here, and you can see that its keyboard shortcut is Q. And here it says that it selects points, paths, segments, and objects. So the lasso tool works similarly to the direct selection tool over here, that it allows you to select individual anchor points within a shape or object. However, the lasso tools allows you to draw around an area of points you want to select so that you'll be easily able to select several at one time. Okay, now let's use the lasso tool, and let's say I want to select the top three over here. I can just draw a circle around them, and it doesn't have to be a proper circle, as you can clearly see. I can select these four. I can select these six over here, or five, not six. Then I can select this whole row over here. I can select this whole row over here. I can even do this, as you can clearly see. As long as your object is inside these path, you can just select them and then click and drag it. Okay, let's try it again. Yes, there you can see now I can click on all of them as a group and drag them. So let's go back. All right. Let's undo whatever we did to our vector image over here. Okay, now that I'm done, I can also use the lasso tool to take away objects inside my vector image, as you can clearly see over here. Okay, let's use it again. All right, selection tool. I think I need to ungroup them first. Yes. Now I can just use the lasso tool and select them, click on it and move them individually, or I can just undo that. Okay, so let's do something. Let's take like half or 1/3 of this image. And then you can see that I can just drag them. All right. So this is how you do it. But the vector image will just stay in its place since it is morphed together. Okay. All right. So this is how you basically use the magic wand tool and also our lasso tool. All right. And if you want to see some options for your lasso tool, just you can see that even if I double click it, it does not work. All right. Okay. Up till now we used objects and images in order to use our magic wand and magic tool. Now what I'll do is basically delete this vector image and use our text tool to create some text. Okay. And then use the lasso tool and our magic wand tool on them. So first, let's create some text over here. There you go. Okay, now afterwards, what I'll do is basically delete this part. And here you can see that I have my text ready. Let's zoom in a bit using the zoom tool. After that, I'll use the hand tool to just bring it in the center. Okay, now that we're ready, if I use the magic wand tool on the text now, it will not select it. I mean, it will not select all of them. So what I have to do first is basically select all of these texts on my artboard, right click, and then create outlines. Or I could also use the Shift Control plus O option over here, which is a shortcut. So after I create outlines, I can also go over here and then change their color. As you can clearly see, I can make it green. I can select multiple of them by pressing Control. Okay, I can't do that now, but let's do something. Let's individually change their colors. Okay. Let's change it to brighter color. This one, I want it to this. Okay. All right, now if I use the magic wand tool on this green color, you'll notice that only green is selected. So what I'll do now is increase the tolerance to at least like 35. Okay, and now if I use it on this, you can see that these two texts are selected after I created outlines, mind you. All right. And now if I select the black color over here, you can see that only the black text are selected. If I select red, only the red, green, since there are two, green, and purple, only one. Okay. Now what I'll do is basically use the lasso tool now. If I select this, you can see that some of them are selected, but I want to select all of them. So now after a proper circle, I can select all of them using the lasso tool. Let's use this. And I can also go ahead and select them individually, as you can clearly see. All right. Now you'll notice if I just draw a line, it will also select everything in the line's path, okay? But it will not be perfect all the time. Let me do it again. Let's say I just select this much and then I use the selection tool to basically move them. Now you can see that since the R is joined to this text, it's just becoming elongated and it does not look nice. So I would actually advise you, whenever you're using the lasso tool for moving your texts, make sure you select them all properly, or else this will be the result. Lorem ipsum, okay? So that is how you basically use the lasso tool to select your texts, and also the wand tool to select the color of the texts that are similar, as you can clearly see. Okay, so thank you for watching this lesson, and I hope you've understood how to use the magic wand tool and the lasso tool in this video. Hello everyone and welcome to this video. And in this video I'm going to teach you all you need to know about the line tools that are present to us right below the curvature tool over here. Okay, so here we have several different tools, 5 to be exact, and the first is the line segment tool. Now what the line segment tool basically does is create lines, and then you can either use those lines to click and drag and then create one single line at a time on the artboard and specify its dimensions. And if you hold down the shift key, you can create a line at a 0, 45, or 90-degree angle. So first let's select that, and here you'll see that this is the line over here. Okay, let me add a stroke to this, 2 points. All right, done. And now you'll notice that when I clicked on the screen over here, the line segment tool options come up where it is asking me for the length, angle, and also the fill line option. Okay, now if I select the fill line, it will create a color fill for me. Now for now, I'll just press this and you can see that it create a line for me as well. Okay, now let's say I wanted to create a straight line. Now you can see that since this is a bit bent, if you want to create a straight line, before creating it, just like click on the artboard, then select shift, and now you can see that it is at a 0-degree angle and I can create a straight line very easily like that. Okay, so this is how you create a straight line, and we can also basically create different types of shapes using our line tools. For example, let me go over here and press shift. Afterwards, go ahead and press alt, the selection tool, copy it down here, and then I'd like to create the line over here. Okay, and then say I did that. What I'm going to do is select both of them, press alt, copy it, and then right click. Before that, I'm going to select this, alt, copy it right there. I'll select both of them, put it right in the center, just like that. And over here, moving lines with our selection tool is a bit tough. So afterwards is basically all of them, press Alt to copy and put them right over here. There you go. Then we can simply just use the line tool to create two lines over here. And now you can see that I have the capital letter E over here. Right click and group. And now what I'll do is I'll go over here and select the fill color. All right. Okay. And now you can see that adding fill color doesn't really add any changes to it. Just stays the same. Okay. So now what I'll do is go over and show you how to use the arc tool. All right. The arc tool makes arches. However, I personally don't find it the easiest to control and would recommend using the curvature tool instead. But try them out both and see what you prefer. All right. So for creating arcs, you just have to select a point, then click and drag, just like that. All right. If you want to create in the other direction, you can do that as well. Okay. Now, using the arc tool, we can create different types of designs. For example, right now, what I'm going to do is select all of them, go down right there. Okay. Create a rectangle. Select a color fill of white. Then I'm going to select all of my lines over here. So use the selection tool to select all of my lines. And afterwards, what I can do is go over here to my shape style and change it to this type. And let's say I made it a bit smaller. So I'll press the Shift key and make them smaller, just like that. Before that, I would like to change the stroke color to a bit green. Okay. I can just select all of them, make them small, and also okay, let's start this from the beginning. It didn't work out, so use the arc tool. What I'm trying to do now is basically create a grass pattern, as you can see over here. Right, I can just press Ctrl D to there you go. That way I don't have to worry about just clicking and doing it multiple times. There you go. Okay, now what I'll do is I'll basically again select all of them, put their stroke to green. Okay, and then in the brush definition, I'll choose the charcoal effect. Or if I want more options, I can just select the artistic paintbrush. And from here, I can select brush 1, brush 2, brush 3. Okay, now this is a perfect example. And here you can see that I have a grass pattern. Very nice looking also. Let's do that. And here I want to add in a fill of white so that the bottom parts cannot be seen. And now here you can see that this is what it looks like. It's pretty nice as far as I can see. Okay. So this is how you create a grass pattern using our curve or arc tool over here, not curve tool. Let's create the stroke to, let's say, and let's put a fill over here. Okay. You can also increase the stroke points just like this, reduce it to create an effect, as you can clearly see. All right. So this is how you use the arc tool, and afterwards we have the spiral tool. Now what the spiral tool does is self-explanatory. It is a tool that makes spirals. This is actually a super fun tool. However, I don't know that I've ever actually used it for a real project before, but if you can find a practical use for this, then good luck to you. All right. So before I start the arc tool, I'll go over here and explain a few uses of the arc tool. So when you click on the artboard, you'll see the arc tool options come up, and here we can select the length, and it's between the X and Y axis, and we can select it either to be open or closed. Now what the closed one does is basically, first let me show you what the open looks like, and here you can see this is what it looks like. All right, let's put a stroke more deeper. Now this is our open arc, and if I select the arc tool, select a closed arc this time, press OK. Now you can see that this is what it looks like, and whenever I create more arcs, it will be created in the same pattern. It will close itself after it creates an arc, just like this. Okay. All right, let's click on it again, and this time we will either select a base along the X and Y axis using this option, and here we can either select the slope to be convex or concave. First, if I select convex, you will notice that this is what it does. Okay, our shape's curve is more convex. Now let's select that again and create a more concave one. So, okay, and now you can see that this is what the concave does. All right. All right. Now that we're done with this part, let's go ahead and go to the next tool now, which is our spiral tool. And in the spiral tool, it's very easy to use. You just click and drag and then create spirals. And if you do this, it will create a hypnotizing effect, as you can clearly see. but we're not here for that here. So we'll just create a spiral for now. And this is what it looks like. You can make it like this, enlarge and change the height and width of the spiral as well. And if you want more options with our spiral tool, just click on the artboard and here you will see the radius. The radius, if we put it to, let's say 200 and press OK, now you can see that the radius of our spiral tool has grown and the shape has become bigger. Okay, so let me select it, put it down right over here. Afterwards, we have a different option with our spiral tool, which is decay. Now let's set the decay to about 10% and see what happens so that you can understand what I'm talking about. All right. So this is the decay with 10%, and you can see that this is what it does. It removes the curves inside our spiral. Now let's select the spiral tool again, and this time I want to put our decay at 200%. Let's press OK. And here you can see that our curve over here, or the spiral over here, has become huge, that it just covers the whole Adobe Illustrator platform. Let's press Shift to bring it down, and then click and drag it, or just delete it because it's of no use to us anyways. Let's zoom in here, and this time let's select the spiral tool and put our decay to just 100%. But this time I want the number of segments to increase, so let's put around 32 segments. Press OK. And here you can see that due to 32 segments, our spiral tool has turned into a circle itself. All right, let's go back over here. And this time let's select like not that much. 16 segments, press OK. All right, so this is what happens. Let's delete this. And another part of the spiral tool is the style. You can either put it in a clockwise or counterclockwise style. Let's select this one. Oh, I'm sorry. Let's select this and then let's put the decay to that much. Press OK. You can see that this is what it looks like. Let's put the segment to at least 36 now. It's the same.